Resources and Relativity, Rethinking Poverty Measures in a Dynamic World. Poverty has been a pressing domestic and international concern for decades. Through personal experiences, the media, and politicians, we have an abstract idea of what it means to be poor. But is this enough? The current poverty measure in America uses both the SPM, the Supplemental Poverty Measure, and the OPM, the Official Poverty Measure. The OPM, which has been used since the 1960s, uses a baseline of a thrifty food basket, multiplies this by 3, and adjusts for inflation. This also accounts for gross annual pre-tax income, cash welfare such as TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and pension and veterans insurance. The SPM, a new measure implemented in 2011, uses a baseline of the 33rd percentile of expenditure on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities, multiplied by 1.2 to account for other expenses, and takes into account gross annual pre-tax income, non-cash benefits, in-kind and fringe benefits, near-cash benefits, and subtracts non-discretionary expenses such as medical out-of-pocket care, payroll tax, child care, and transportation. These measures are highly statistical and account for much of the monetary resources that families use and have access to. The problem, however, is that these calculations, although convenient, do not answer a central question. How are people really doing? For this reason, we suggest the following. Poverty should be defined as an inability to fulfill, by a relative standard, Nussbaum's 10 central capabilities, due to a lack of resources. This relative standard should be measured by metrics specific to each capability, defining that a person is experiencing poverty if they fall below a threshold in any specific capability. To better understand the meaning and implications of this, let's convert this abstract idea into something more tangible. The Central Capabilities Framework, designed and corroborated by Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum, is designed to address 10 areas essential to what we define as quality of life. Specifically, it accounts for basic levels of survival and fulfillment. These 10 central capabilities are as follows: life, bodily health, bodily integrity, senses, imagination and thought, emotions, practical reason, affiliation, connection to other species, play, and control over one's environment. The part of our argument that strays from Sen and Nussbaum's concept of capabilities is our definition of what it means to secure a threshold level. We believe that metrics are important to ensuring that poverty can be adequately recorded, tracked, and improved upon. Our suggestion for this metric is similar to the Human Development Index's approach, which uses statistical inputs such as life expectancy at birth, average year of education, and gross national income to create a single number that defines human development in a nation. Rather than creating a single statistic to encompass a nation's development, we believe that these categories can be defined by several metrics, and that inherently these capabilities are fertile and further perpetuate themselves. Here are some examples. Some capabilities are inextricably linked, and their metrics can be grouped together. The capabilities of life, bodily health, and bodily integrity can be measured by the following things: average number of meals per day, average life expectancy at birth, child mortality, access to health care, nutrition rates. The capability of senses, imagination, and thought can be measured by average years of schooling. However, some of these capabilities are more difficult to measure holistically. For example, the capabilities of emotion and practical reason. There is no scale to measure the capacity of a population to have attachments to things and people outside of ourselves, or to have conceptions of good. However, social sciences have directed us to study the relation between opportunities given and the development of such capabilities. The capabilities of emotions, affiliation, and practical reason, connection to other species, and play can be developed when child labor is diminished, the capabilities of life, bodily health, and bodily integrity are not in danger, living environments are safe and protected, green spaces and clean air are accessible, individuals are free to practice religious practices of their choosing, and individuals are capable of living a dignified life within society. You may consider, even if all of these components indicate standards of living, is there a difference between a lack of capabilities and poverty? We believe so. Consider the following example. An inability to express religious preferences without a fear of retribution from the government is an infringement of affiliation and emotions and possibly bodily integrity. But does this defining feature indicate that they are in poverty? We argue that while this does infringe upon human dignity, this singular standard does not place this person below the poverty threshold. The differentiation between these two, usually closely related things, is that oppression itself is not a lack of resources. However, if a person is unable to practice their religion because they are working excruciatingly long days or they cannot afford transportation to their space of worship, this may indicate that they are experiencing poverty. Poverty is inextricably tied to resources, either cultural or physical, that allows humans to fulfill capabilities. Oppression and persecution are means for concern, but they are not poverty, which must be isolated from other forms of oppression to be properly addressed. However, most frequently these circles overlap, with the intersection of a lack of resources and a lack of capabilities classified as poverty. It could also be argued that metrics can't account for everything, and we agree. However, metrics are important for visualizing progress and accounting for the worst off. While our metric could never account for every capability that may cause a lack of resources and therefore poverty, our metric is the best way to balance the importance of data and the interconnectedness of human capabilities. An issue associated with the OPM that may also be a criticism of our metric is that geographical circumstances are not implicitly accounted for. While our metric does not have a geographical component, we acknowledge that relativity is important in determining a standard. That is to be said, a lack of adequate education in America might be an incomplete high school diploma, where elsewhere, completing primary education could be adequate. Relativity adds a complexity to our metric. However, this should not be a limitation. Human dynamics are inherently complex, and our metric measures this. The problem with current poverty measures is not that they are wrong, but that they are incomplete. The SPM and OPM, although flawed as comprehensive measures, do take into account monetary resources, which we believe play a role in determining the resources that allow for capabilities. We believe that aspects like income, savings, and assets should be accounted for, and are actually inherent in our definition and measure of poverty, as they are examples of resources that allow for capability fulfillment. Our argument strays from Robert Rector's theories of poverty in America, as stated in his article, Air Conditioning, Cable TV, and an Xbox: What is Poverty in the United States Today?, in which he explains that many Americans experiencing poverty should not be considered as such, since such a large percentage have access to appliances, what he considers to be amenities, are not missing meals, and are not experiencing homelessness. Unlike Robert Rector, we do not believe that an excess in a single capability should indicate that an individual is considered in poverty. For this example, we note that an excess in material wealth, as listed under Central Capability Number 10, control over one's environment, can be a fertile capability, providing opportunities for other capabilities, but is not inherently so. Access to a refrigerator, a microwave, or even further luxuries, like gaming systems or jacuzzis, do not mean that an individual purchased it, currently has the wealth of when they purchased it, or that it is functioning properly. We believe that our metric is not only more liberal, but more comprehensive in accounting for how people are truly doing. Measuring the wealth and well-being of individuals is complicated and convoluted. Human dynamics are personal and situational, and no metric will ever encompass all it means to experience poverty. However, we believe that our metric best accounts for the ability of every individual to be fulfilled and provided for, while addressing the dignity of all people.